What's up, everyone? Welcome. We are live right now on CannaBuzz, and if you're joining us on Spotify, YouTube, or elsewhere, thank you so much for joining us. We have a great episode for you today. This one's for everyone. This week, we're going to be talking about extractions. We're going to be talking about we'll probably get into ways so you can do it with all sorts of things, plants and fungi. It's going to be covering all the bases. Jared's super excited about this one, so make sure you stay tuned. Before we get too far into it, though, we need to make a couple shout outs. Shout out to everyone in the CannaBuzz community. Those are the folks that love our show and they want to keep us going on. You can join us over in CannaBuzz. Go to cannabuzz.app in your browser and use the code BUZZ for your first month free. We'd love to see you over there. Your support helps us keep going, and we use those to send out the proceeds from that to also send out seeds to members of the group. So once you join in the app or the community, you can sign up in a form, put in your address, and we'll send you some seeds eventually. So join us over there. We'd love to see you. And then also, appropriate to the show, shout out to Tanazi Gardens and sacred3mushrooms.com. You want to grow your own fungi at home, check out sacred3mushrooms.com or tanazigardens.com. Use the code CannaBuzz and you can get 10% off your grow kits and everything else you need. They have everything, including instructions. So check them out and we appreciate their support. And then I'm going to throw it over to JR.
Thanks, Q. We've got our Tiki announcements today. Tiki has some new clones out at tikicuts.com. He's got some crunch berries, some Florida Man, and some grunts. So check out tikicuts.com. He's also got some new seeds out at tikiseeds.com, some Tiki Punch and some more new varieties. Also, I want to shout out Raw Genetics at Neptune Seed Bank. They're going to be releasing the Zikigai clones. Zikigai Gardens is a nursery in California that has now got their licensing to do rec. So you'll start seeing more raw genetics in the California rec scene. So check out rawgenetics.com and secretselections.io. All right, so I'm going to do the introduction today because I'm super stoked about our guest today. Today we have David Poplin on, and David is opening a cafe in Portland, Oregon. It's going to be Hongos Café, and Hongos means mushroom in Spanish. And the Hongos Café will be a community hub for plant and fungi-based nutrition and medicine. And not only that, there'll be space for community events for folks to come in and take the opportunity to share their knowledge and share their wares. So this is an extremely awesome opportunity for the city of Portland. I couldn't be more stoked to have him on. Please welcome to the show, David.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be a part of the Portland community, and we are so stoked to have this opportunity to have a place like this and to just share my knowledge. It's just like a home base for everyone to come and share their passions and their knowledge, and I'm just so excited to learn as well.
Well, before we get into it, go ahead and give us a quick shout out for your Instagram handle so that people can check out both your personal page and the Los Hongos Cafe page.
Yeah, definitely. So my personal page on Instagram is just at David Poplin, Poplin. And then the Instagram for the cafe is Los Hongos Café. So pretty simple, pretty easy to follow us, and I will definitely follow back. And I like to engage with the people on Instagram, so definitely give me a follow.
Please do. So when we have our guests come on, we always ask them how they fell in love with the plant and the fungi and how it's helped get them where they are today.
Yeah, so I think one of my first passion was definitely cannabis. So I started growing cannabis when I was 18 years old. So that was 15 years ago. And that started my whole interest in just plants and fungi and, what nature has to offer. Once I started that, I wanted to learn and I wanted to grow more potent cannabis, better terpene profile. So I started studying. I changed my college degree from music to biochemistry. So it was like a huge transition for me. It was very hard, but I don't regret anything, and that's what kind of got me to where I'm at today. And I studied biochemistry at Humboldt State University. I graduated there with my chemistry degree and a minor in physics. And when I moved there up to Humboldt from Southern California to Northern California, that's where I kind of just dove into the world of mushrooms. The psychedelic mushrooms were growing on campus, and that was very interesting to me, where I was just like, damn, this is awesome. And like I was walking to class and had a buddy be like, hey, eat that mushroom. And I'm like, okay. And just have like a very engaged like lecture. And I'm just like, wow, like there's something really special about these mushrooms. And I was like familiar with them. You know, we all have that like experience of us taking them in high school, eating the eighth and definitely eating too much and being like, that was fucking crazy. But like, I didn't realize how available the medicine was. I didn't realize that you can like grow it yourself. So that was just like a huge transition to where I was like, you know what? Like, it's not just about cannabis for me. It's other things that nature has to offer. So that kind of like drove me to the mushroom side. So after college, I was doing distillate. So I was making distillate in a backyard hash lab in Humboldt County, and worked for a legal cannabis company up in Northern California as well. And after that, I was just like, COVID hit, and I was just like, I'm gonna dive. I just went head over heels for mushrooms and just started cultivating, started learning as much as I can, foraging as much as I can, and it was just like a blessing in disguise, because that was like a time where everyone was kind of like, we have all this time and we're getting, what do we do with it? And that's where I was just like, I'm going to start a company. So I started Humboldt Mycology and started just growing mushrooms and providing education for people to grow their own, or providing mushrooms for people who don't have access to it. And that's just been like, honestly, one of the best things about this venture is getting the mushrooms to people who don't have access to it. And I think that's very important. And here I am today opening my own mushroom cafe.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. I'm excited about it. I think it's awesome that you're here in the Northwest. I mean, I'm from Astoria, Oregon area and Long Beach Peninsula, and I'm sure you know the bounty of psilocybin mushrooms that we have, psilocybe. I don't know how many varieties they've actually documented just in that zone.
Yeah.
But there's quite a few. There's really quite a few. So
like the azarescens, those ones like feel so much different than a lot of mushrooms that we're cultivating. So that one, psilocybin azarescens, the ones that we're cultivating mostly are psilocybin cubensis. So it's just a different species.
yeah, and from what I understand, azarescents only kind of grow at the mouth of the Columbia River and in that kind of immediate region,
Yep.
which makes them super, super special. I was fortunate enough, and like you, I got inspired, and now I have a caked out 27-gallon tote, and I'm out there every morning now waiting, just waiting.
It's like a TV show where you're just like staring through the tub, like, yeah.
It's like, wow, it's better than fish tank.
Yeah.
It's better than a fish tank.
So tell us what the vision was behind the cafe, and yeah, just kind of I would love to hear your hopes and dreams for it. Just tell us kind of the backstory.
Yeah, so partnered up with a buddy of mine, and he owned this company called Culture Shrooms. They're based in Long Beach, and they wanted to open one up in Arcata, small little town that I lived in for about 10 years in Humboldt. And I was like, let's do it. So, I was partnered with him, and I helped him create, I used his structure from Culture Shrooms in Long Beach, and I just did what I wanted to do there. And what I did there was just created a social house, a plant bar social house, where we were trying to provide different alternatives to alcohol and provide settings where people could come and hang out and not get drunk, but still have that like bar social setting. So I got my inspiration and practice from doing that. And then maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, I was like, you know what, like I kind of want complete control of this. I would like to be able to just have my own place where I can do where I want and not have to like make sure it's okay with the partners. So that was like the foundation of me wanting to open up Los Hongos. So I ended up selling my shares at Culture Shrooms. And basically, I'm just taking the structure of what I built there and bringing it here to Portland. And yeah, so my goals and visions of it is to have a place where we are selling different mushroom infused tinctures, mushroom infused meals. We'll be doing like oyster mushroom tacos, or we'll be doing different mushroom empanadas. Truffle mushroom toast. Oregon has a bunch of different natural truffles that we'll be able to incorporate into different meals. So that's another thing, is being able to incorporate all this foraging that goes on locally into our cafe. And not only that, but I really enjoy sharing my passion about this and hearing other people speak about their passions. So I'm so excited to have different speakers, different cultivation courses, extraction courses. We'll be doing like open mic nights once a week where people can come and express themselves, whether it's poems, songs, whatever. And one thing I really enjoyed about what I started in Humble was it felt so good when people would come up to me and be like, I met my girlfriend now at the time. I met my girlfriend at your shop, or now I have this whole new group of friends at your shop because you started the open mic nights. So I just hope that we can do that here in Portland and just create this connection and network of like-minded individuals.
Yeah, maybe people could get their dopamine fix from that rather than looking at a phone,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, get out of your digital community and get into your actual community, because we've got a lot of shit going on in the world. And the one thing I think we might have some control over is our local communities. And so it's really important that we get engaged and that we start getting out there and getting socialized with each other. Especially because, finding like-minded individuals sometimes is a beautiful thing, Um, I want to go ahead and kind of hammer through some of these extraction questions, just because I feel like you're going to be able to provide some very solid and useful information. And the first thing we're going to talk about is water extractions, doing infusions, teas, and concoctions. And um, first of all, I'd kind of like to talk about water as a solvent. What makes water kind of the universal solvent?
Yeah, I like how you use that term, universal. I mean, we're made of water. Mushrooms are 90% water until you dry them or do whatever you're going to do with them. So, yeah, that's a great question. I think water is one of the most important solvents. Um, it could be used, that's a thing. So it depends what you're extracting. I recommend whatever you're extracting, you want to find out the medicinal compounds of interest, and then you can dive into whether or not water is going to be a better solvent for that. But water is a very polar compound. So basically, if you're trying to extract out like likes like, we say in chemistry. So if your medicinal compound of interest is polar, then most likely you could use a polar solvent, which would be water. Or there's other things, like there's a lot of different polysaccharides and stuff that are in mushrooms that have anti-cancer, anti-tumor properties. And what's a polysaccharide? It's a chain of sugars connected to each other with what's called a glycosidic bond. What water does is it breaks up those bonds and allows the sugars to, dissolve into the water. So that's what's really great about water as well, is you're able to use it for so many different mushrooms, different compounds, but just making sure that that the compound of interest is going to be soluble in your water.
So, you guys kind of highlighted three different variations here. We talked about, or you mentioned teas, infusions, and then I think the third one was concoctions. Could you talk me? I'm a noob, so can you talk me through the differences between those three? What are those three things? Teas, infusions, and concoctions.
Um, it's a little vague of a question,
Okay.
but in a sense, you can do, if we're just focusing on mushrooms,
Yeah.
you do teas with dried mushroom material.
Right.
And so these mushrooms have those polysaccharides in them that are going to be able to be water soluble and will definitely break down in water and then become more bioavailable in the tea, versus if you were to just like take a spoonful of that like powder.
Right.
Concoction, off the top of my head, I can't think of like the exact terminology of what that like really means.
Um, I, I can go ahead and step in.
Yeah.
This is kind of under the plant realm. Concoctions are basically like pastes that you put together that you would apply on wounds
Okay.
or that kind of thing. It's a concentrated paste where, a water infusion is pulling, like you said, out. And teas are kind of in that same realm where you're just kind of soaking whatever powder or herbs that you put in from a plant-based perspective. And I want to kind of move down the plant realm, and then we'll drop down into the fungi realm. So from a plant-based perspective, like kava and stuff like that, what compounds are best extracted with water, like you'd mentioned, the polysaccharides, and what ones are lost during that process, like volatile terpenes and stuff like that in plant-based stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we can use kava for that, which we will be serving kava. We're going to be using what's called kava nectar. And what they do with this is they actually, it's a cold water pressed. So it's essentially the root is juiced in cold water and then it's freeze dried. And what's cool about this is you can add it to essentially any drink. So we'll be able to incorporate that in any elixir we have. And it's essentially, they say, about double the strength of like normal traditional kava. But normal traditional kava is made by kneading the kava root. You get the powdered kava root and you put it in like a hash bag or like a mesh bag, and you sit there and knead it in like a little bit, maybe like not burnt, not boiling, but maybe like 120 degrees water to where you're able to kind of like put some gloves on and knead your kava in there. And what's happening there is, yeah, the kava lactones are being extracted into the water. So you're sitting there, and every time you knead it and push it out, you're kind of releasing these kava lactones, which those are the compounds that are responsible for the euphoria, the relaxation, the social aspects. So that's just one way that you can make the kava. You're kneading it for about 20 to like 40 minutes. The longer, the better. The more kava lactones you can unlock. And then boom, you have your kava water. It's very simple for people to do themselves. I know that's why people like to go to kava bars, because sometimes it's a pain in the ass to sit there and knead this kava for 30 minutes or so. So I think that's why people like to just go to kava bars and just try their different sections of that and let someone else do the hard work for them. And then one thing about water, like you just talked about degrading different compounds, is especially with like mushroom teas, you don't want, like, people have the misconception where they can just use 212-degree boiling water on their teas or on their mushroom powders. But the problem with that is you have potential degradation from the hot water. So you really want to do maybe around like 170, maybe like 185 max for your mushroom teas or your plant teas in a sense. So really it just gets down to figuring out what you're trying to get out of your extract or water extract, because then you can go and do your research and be like, oh, okay, if we're doing cannabis, what terpenes, what's the boiling point of these terpenes? And then you can be like, okay, I'm not going to reach this temperature, whatever solvent you're using. That way you can ensure that you're not degrading these like very volatile compounds.
Nice.
So, if folks are making their own teas or infusions at home after they've made them, do you have any tips for like safety and storage so that I can safely store this stuff and keep it as long as I can keep it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it would be really, if we all had freeze dryers, that would be great. 'Cause then you could like freeze dry your teas and stuff, and then you have like really cool blends that have more shelf life. But if you're gonna brew like a big batch of tea, I just recommend like throwing it in your fridge and making sure that you're kind of going through it within like a week, 2 weeks. Um, Another thing you can do is you could also dry it. So you could always dry your powders. Like, let's say you have a lion's mane powder, you can dry it, dehydrate it, and then you at least have your lion's mane powder, which stores a lot longer than if the mushroom was just filled with water. So that's one way that you can like help preserve your mushrooms or your plants of interest that you're going to be doing a water extraction on.
Excellent. That kind of moves us into the next extraction kind of category, and that is ethanol extractions for tinctures and tonics. Why do you think ethanol is such a common solvent for plant-based medicines?
Well, one thing that's great about ethanol, kind of like water, is it's very easily accessible. Actually, a lot of Americans are addicted to ethanol. That's the compound that gets us drunk and whatever beer, wine, alcohol, hard liquor. So it's just accessible. Like you can go and get 190 or 200 proof ethanol from a lot of different sources. I believe, like I was able to just go in Humboldt. They had this spot called Eureka Oxygen, and I was able to just go and buy 190 proof organic cane ethanol, and I was able to do my extractions with that. It's very accessible. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you can get really good ethanol like delivered to your door now. That's probably what I
Yeah.
have to do until I find a source here in Portland. So that's just a big one: accessibility and safeness. You know, you're not so ethanol is essentially safe. It's not very flammable. It's flammable, but I'm not scared of an ethanol fire. Like I have done times just to like show people where I pour ethanol on my hand and light my hand on fire. And, you know, it's easy to just be like, blow it out. Whereas, you know, if we're using butane's a fucking scary gas and you can't see it. So it can puddle on the ground. And we all have heard of this in the cannabis world of just people blowing up their hash labs because it's just a very flammable, dangerous gas. Ethanol, same with like methanol. Methanol is a really good solvent as well, but it can't, if you drink it or like you inhale too much of it, it could make you sick or go blind. So, you know, it's just really, ethanol is a safe one to use. It's also easier to kind of get out of your extract. You can either, what most people don't have, what's called a rotary evaporator, but these machines, rotary evaporators, are able to distill out your solvent, ethanol, and it recollects your ethanol. So not only can you use it for another extraction, but it also gets it out of your extract. It gets it out of it. That way it's concentrating your extract. And then you're able to yeah, like I said, it's really awesome that you're able to reuse it. If you don't have this rotary evaporator, then you can just boil off the ethanol in a well ventilated room. And that also is kind of concentrating your extract. But
Okay.
again, you want to make sure that you're not going to be degrading the compounds of interest by boiling off your ethanol.
Yeah. I think someone probably called JR there. The extraction they were just talking about, JR has something that's like that. It's called an extract craft, where you can do that at home, and it's pretty awesome. So if I were to score some ethanol and I'm making a plant tincture at home, how long do I have the material in the alcohol? Like, how long do I let it steep? And what's kind of going on during that time, in the chemically speaking?
Yeah, so we can use, for this one, we can use cannabis as an example because one of the best, I think, extracts in cannabis is Rick Simpson oil. And that one is just an ethanol extract. So essentially, you can grind up your cannabis, throw it in the jar, fill it with ethanol, and I'd let that sit for probably like at least maybe like 2 weeks minimum, but the longer the better, up to like 6 months. Some people do like year long soaks. Ethanol is also a great preservative too, so that helps kind of keep your stuff from like molding or anything else weird like that happening, fermentation or whatever. So I would say at least 2 weeks minimum. And what's happening is the ethanol is kind of extracting out the cannabinoids. So it's basically just making a solution of cannabinoids. And then what you do is you separate your mixture, your plant matter and your ethanol, using a filter, or in the chemistry world, we would use a Buckner funnel. On a vacuum pump, you would just like pull vacuum on this system and it pulls with a filter plate. I have one back here, but I won't get it. And you filter it, and then essentially all you have is your ethanol and cannabinoid mixture, full spectrum. So the ethanol actually kind of does like a full spectrum extract of the cannabis plant. And it's not just with cannabis. Ethanol could be used for um, mescaline and cacti. It could be used for just different plant. Basically, I would recommend figuring out, like I said, I go back to this time and time again, is figuring out your compound of interest, figure out the solubility of it, the polarity of it, and then that'll give you like a better example of like, which solvent's going to be best to extract this compound.
Well, I'll use this opportunity to do a shameless plug. At tokenroots.com, I sell a mullein tincture.
Hey.
Mullein is an invasive plant, but it's also an expectorant, and it does amazing thing for lung health. And a lot of us older guys have been puffing for a long time. That mullein really helps. So that is another example of a plant-based medicine that you can extract with alcohol. And once it's extracted into that form, like David said, its shelf life is quite long, compared. And I think that's one of the things that kind of sparked my interest is like, okay, so what medicines are around me that are easy to pull out with alcohol? What are some of the ones that you think work really well coming out using ethanol for?
Well, I know when I was like growing a lot of psilocybin mushrooms, we were even doing extractions with ethanol. So it's just, it's like it's like another universal solvent, I believe too, where it's a good one, honestly. And it's just very easy to get. I recommend people messing around with it. Start just putting your plants and cool things in there. But psilocybin is one of them. That's pretty cool to do. What people are called the goop. So you basically just do your psilocybin extract and try and take out the ethanol in a safe manner. If you're going to boil it on a stove, just do it at a really low temperature with like very ventilated area. And yeah, so I mean, that just kind of concentrates whatever you're extracting in a sense. But I like your mullein one. That's pretty cool. There's so many plants out there that have medicinal compounds, and if you do an ethanol soak, it kind of just releases and makes those compounds more bioavailable.
Well, the next section is the fungi section, and I do a two-stage process on my lion's mane where I do a 6-week alcohol soak. Then I boil the mass. I strain it out, and then I boil that mushroom mass for 2 hours on a very low simmer, and then I combine those together. One of the things, though, that I'm running across is there are folks in the recovery community who have issues with alcohol. So if I was wanting to do a mullein-based alternative, what would be another alternative to ethanol in those situations?
Yeah, I get this question pretty often, actually. You can use like acetic acid, which is like vinegar. So vinegar is another acidic compound that you can use that's pretty good with doing extractions. Again, just figuring out that this solvent would work for your plant matter or a compound of interest. It's pretty universal as well. So you can either substitute the alcohol with acetic acid vinegar, and I know some companies will do propylene glycol. That's another one that.
Like a vegetable glycerin.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, because I have seen like on the shelves at the health food store, they have like a vegetable glycerin based
Yep.
whatever.
And
Okay.
another thing you can do too is you can take out, like that's why that machine you have or like a rotary evaporator are really cool, because you could take out essentially all your ethanol. It's hard to
Yes.
get it all out, but like you can get it to the point where it's almost not there at all. Like
Yeah.
maybe a fucking like 0.5% ethanol. But a lot of tinctures will do like 30 to 40% ethanol. And I get that where it might trigger people. And it's kind of happened to me. Like when I was taking an alcoholic break and I wasn't drinking a lot, I was making a lion's mane extract, and honestly, chugging that lion's mane extract with the ethanol in it, I could see how it's triggering, because I was just like, ooh, I kind of feel like a little bit of alcoholic buzz from drinking like a cup full of lion's mane extract.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can take it out and just use, once you have that, then you have your pure extract. And then you can use solvents like water, acetic acid, propylene glycol. And you can also add different preservatives instead of the ethanol, like vitamin C. I know vitamin C or E, those two can actually be used at like maybe like a 2 to 5% ratio. And that can actually be a replacement for the um, at least the shelf stable aspect of ethanol.
And so, how shelf stable? If I'm pulling a ethanol extraction with Mullen, what do you think the viability is? That just depends on the chemistry of what you're extracting.
Yeah, I think that depends on what you're extracting, your efficiency, how well you extracted it, and then how it's stored is a big one. Oxidation is a problem. Right now, that's a big problem right now in the mushroom world where people are trying to figure out shelf stability and make sure that the compounds aren't degrading over time. Um, and it's kind of rough. Like, what if you make a huge batch of, let's say, lion's mane extract, and it doesn't sell as fast as you'd like? So now we're finding that the concentrations drop dramatically.
Yeah, I'm in that boat. I mean, I pretty much do very small batches at a time just because I don't want a bunch of it sitting around, you know.
Yeah.
And what about like oxidization from light? Is that an issue? Is that a breakdown kind of thing similar within cannabis?
Exactly. That's why people recommend putting it it'll say on the bottle, like putting it in a dark, room temperatured area. They'll also use like the amber bottles.
Yep.
Amber
Right.
just kind of protects from UV degradation, sunlight.
Yeah. Excellent.
So we're gonna move into fungi, the fungi part of the show. So I was looking through JR's notes, and it looks like, or it sounds like, when you're doing extractions here, water extractions, you're using water and ethanol together. And it looks like it might be for specific compounds that are like complementary to each other. So could you kind of talk me through that? I'd love to learn more about it.
Yeah, in the mushroom world, that's we call that a dual extract. So what you're doing is, I'm coming back to this, is you're getting the ethanol soluble compounds in ethanol, and then you're getting the water solubles. So let's say, for example, you're doing a reishi mushroom extract. Reishi has anti-tumor, anti-cancer properties. It has a lot of different medicinal compounds. It's an ancient Chinese medicine. So basically, if we were doing a reishi extract, you would want to extract out the triterpenes. I know the cannabis world, we know about terpenes. Mushrooms have terpenes too. So you're extracting out these triterpenes, which these compounds are more soluble in ethanol. So using ethanol, you're able to get out these triterpenes, which those compounds are the ones responsible for the anti-cancer, anti-tumor. And then you would go and take, how JR was saying, is you would put that reishi after you extracted an ethanol into some water, into a water extract, and then that water extract is going to take out those polysaccharides. There's so many different polysaccharides in mushrooms that have the medicinal benefits of, like, immune support is like a big one. There's the main one is beta glucans is like a big one. That one's mostly found in like lion's mane, and that one has really high. They've found that there's scientific evidence that that one's really good for immune support, immune boosting properties. So again, that's why you would use the water for that part, is because you want to get these different compounds. And then what people will do is mix those two together at a certain concentration or rate or ratio, and then you have more of a full spectrum extract.
I like that you mentioned Chinese herbal medicine. There's a lot of really powerful plant-based medicines and recipes. Like, I make this, again, shameless plug. It's called Dit's Amazing, and I use Dit Da Jiao, Ditdajow. And these jiaos are different herbal and root combinations from Chinese herbal medicine that target specific things like pain, anti-inflammatory, nausea. There's a whole list. And I go to Plum Dragon is where I get my packs. You can get your own herbal packs and then just buy your ethanol and make your own dits, your dit to jow. And the dit to jow, I mix with cannabis infused coconut oil. I bump it with CBD extract. I add emu oil as a carrier, like DMSO, and then I put a little peppermint in there so it doesn't smell so much like weed. And it's a topical. And so I think checking out, and also India has their Ayurvedic medicines. And a lot of the Indian Ayurvedic medicines also have a lot of plant and fungi based medicinal recipes and stuff that you can use. And earlier in the show, you kind of mentioned the temperature of the water. Can you talk about using a cold water extraction versus a hot water extraction, and why that might be important in the compounds you're seeking?
Sorry, I don't know why that's happening. Yeah, definitely. So a hot water, making sure, like I talked about earlier, is making sure your water is not too hot for some compounds, especially like terpenes. Like if you're doing cannabis, terpenes are very volatile. So not hitting it with too hot of water, depending on the compound of interest. But that's a great question too. So we could talk about, we'll use cannabis as an example. When you even with ethanol. So when you're pulling out the fats and lipids with ethanol, you want to freeze your ethanol, and you're using a really cold as possible ethanol, and that kind of helps separate the different fats and lipids. So just by changing that the temperature of the solvent can really have an impact on what you're actually extracting. Um, so it's basically just with like that kind of basic background, or like that example of like what is going to be extracted at this temperature versus if you weren't going to heat it up or cool it down. Because I know a lot of people will do that too with mushroom extracts, is they'll say, you know, put it in your freezer or fridge for about, you don't want to do a freezer if it's just water, but if you did like a water ethanol mix and put that in the freezer, then you can potentially extract the different compounds of interest just by having it at that cooler temperature.
I think JR is dealing with a dog. Let's see. So I'm trying to understand JR's question here on next on the list here.
Well, I can go ahead and grab it, Q. You
Yeah.
had mentioned earlier in the interview about the goo, the kind of RSO version of the mushroom extract. Can you kind of walk people through maybe a home way to do that safely?
Yeah, definitely. So, for example, what the method that I did was make sure you cultivate or purchase your mushrooms and make sure they're as dry as possible. That helps with increasing your yields of making this what they call goo or psilocybin extract. So make sure your mushrooms are as dry as you could get them. Just dehydrate them for some time, depending on the size of the mushroom, or it's so easy nowadays to find someone that will sell you nicely dried mushrooms. So you can go that route as well. And you just write down everything. So write down the amount you're throwing in. Let's say you start with like 14 grams of psilocybin dried mushrooms, and then you can soak that in, let's say, 500 milliliters of ethanol. So you want to keep track of your weights, your volumes, and that way at the end you can use this chemical equation called C1V1 equals C2V2. It's something that you use in physics a lot, and that will actually, you'll plug in your numbers. C equals concentration when it starts, V equals volume at start, and then you'll do C equals concentration when you finish versus volume when you finish. So once you plug in all these weights that you're writing down into this equation, you'll be able to get your actual percent yield, which is kind of cool and important to figure out, like, oh, okay, maybe I should scale this up next time. But I guess the easiest way would be, let's say, start with a half gram or an ounce of mushrooms dried into a jar, soak it in ethanol. Usually use like 190 to 200 proof organic cane ethanol. Make sure it's food grade. Make sure it's safe. Make sure it's not denatured. denatured means that you're cutting the ethanol with like heptane or another solvent, another or non-polar solvent or something. They do this for multiple different reasons to make sure that people aren't just buying this alcohol and getting drunk off of it, or they'll do it because the adding the heptane could actually be good to extract other things, but you just want to make sure that you're properly getting that out because you don't want to be ingesting heptane. So that's where chemistry equipment would come into hand, where you can use denatured stuff, but make sure it's not denatured. Make sure it's food grade. Kosher is a funny one that I've been seeing. Like people are saying this is organic kosher ethanol. I'm still trying to figure out what that means, but
anything that kosher means that a rabbi has to pray over it.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's good. That's good. I guess you're getting your ethanol blessed.
Yeah, right. It's become holy water.
Holy ethanol. But yeah, so soak that in at least soak it for like a week or two minimum. If you go a couple months, you'll probably get a darker, more concentrated ethanol mixture, and you'll see it. You'll start seeing the ethanol because ethanol is clear, and then once you mix it, you'll start seeing it turn a different color. With psilocybin, it might start turning more of a blue kind of purplish color, and that's actually the oxidation. That's a chain reaction of the oxidation of psilocybin converting to psilocin. And psilocin is the active compound that actually gives us the psychedelic feeling. So it's kind of cool that you might see this. People do this with water. They'll call it the blue water. So if you soak your mushrooms, mostly if you do it fresh, your water will turn blue and you'll have essentially a psilocybin extract tea, which at that point hits harder and doesn't last as long. It'll hit faster and doesn't last as long. But that's like, I don't know, I'm kind of like getting to something else now. But the easiest way would be ethanol, measure your stuff, keep notes of it, soak for about 2 weeks, and then figure out how to get out your ethanol. Whether if you're going to boil it, you got to make sure that you do it at the lowest amount. You can also pour it into like a tray or like let's say a Pyrex dish, and you can put a fan in front of it. So again, you're going to lose concentration because you're oxidizing it. It's going to turn from psilocybin to psilocin, and that's not always good. The problem with that is psilocin. Like if you see that bluing, some people think the blue, like super blue mushrooms, makes it stronger. But right now, what we're finding out is it could mean that polymerization reaction is so large that it's too big for our brain receptors to take in. So definitely,
the chemistry is being changed in the way that the bonding happens within the liquid that you're using.
Exactly, yeah, and this reaction happens in your gut, so that's why some people will do what's called a lemon tech, where you can actually pre-digest the psilocybin into psilocin, and again, that hits easier on your stomach, hits faster, doesn't last as long. But back to the extract, just making sure you're getting the ethanol out. And and then you should have the goop, and then definitely eat less. Start very low on your dose. If you really want to get into it, it's really cool. I have these buddies in Colorado. They're called Triptomics. So depending on how invested you are, you can send your sample to them, and for about $130, they'll send you back your HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography chromatogram, which tells you how potent your extract is. So I would recommend that, or just starting really, really, really low. Like I know when I made it, I ate like less than a grain of rice, and it was definitely like an 8-hour, pretty intense trip.
That's wild. That's wild. And I like that, I like that idea also for people who might have stomach issues digesting the biomass,
Yep.
Excellent.
So we're gonna get ready for the last like quarter of the show. So I'll let JR kind of put together the last segment there. But before we move on from extractions, I had at least one more question on mushrooms extractions. So in cannabis, we've kind of come to look for full spectrum cannabis extracts. That's what I want. I want like all the terpenes and all the cannabinoids, because we might not even understand what's going on, and all that kind of stuff. Is it the same thing with fungi? Do I want like full spectrum extracts here?
Yeah, you want with mushrooms, it's more common to get the dual extract ones because it creates that full spectrum. Some people will even do what they call a triple extract. And once you're done with the mushrooms from ethanol and water, they'll dehydrate that and grind that up and put that into their extracts. So then you're even getting the full like fruiting body as well, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, you're right. Like when I was making distillate, a lot of distillate in Humboldt County with cannabis, it was, very exciting because it was so new and no one was really doing it yet. But it definitely is like a way different high. It's not as enjoyable to me. Now the market in cannabis is filled with distillate. They're
Yeah.
making drinks with it, carts, and it's just not as nice as like, let's say, water extract, like edible, like versus a distillate edible. So
Yeah, it's narrow. It's narrow in its profile,
yes. So same thing with mushrooms is these most of these extracts aren't going to get you high or make you feel like crazy or anything, but it will actually, if you stay consistent with it and you take these full spectrum mushroom extracts, then it could potentially help you in the long run. Like I think we should all be trying to incorporate different mushrooms into our daily regimens, whether it's supplemental or eating some foods, because they just have so many different compounds that can really change the way that we think or help us live a happier, healthy lifestyle.
That's part of the offerings I have are kind of designed for what I feel like are stoner problems.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, usually we gravitate to weed because of pain. A lot of us do. So that was the rub. I made the lion's mane tincture for cognitive stuff because, say what you will, consuming cannabis for decades
Yes.
does degenerate your cognitive abilities. And so that's why I offer the lion's mane. And the mullein is for your respiratory system. So it's like a 3-pack stoner solution.
Try it.
So a lot of the mushroom products, the powders, the stuff, the pills, are coming either like with a fruiting body or a mycelium based or a mix. Can you kind of talk about the difference and what you would want to, like if I'm going out, I'm going to my health food store, I'm looking for a high quality lion's mane capsule.
Mm-hmm.
Am I looking for fruiting body? Am I looking for mycelium combination? Can you kind of fill in that for us?
Yeah, definitely. So, for example, cordyceps, you can use the cordyceps are grown in nature. They are entomopathogenic, meaning that they feast off of insects. So, when you're growing cordyceps, a lot of us will use like brown rice flour, and these cakes have actually been tested and shown that the mushroom cakes versus the fruiting body have a pretty high concentration of adenosine or cordycepin. Those are the two like main compounds in cordyceps. So with that mushroom, you can use the cakes, and I've actually made like different honeys. I have a cordyceps orange koji honey that I make
That's
to
brilliant.
pretty cool. We'll be selling it at the shop or the cafe. But with that mushroom specifically, it's okay to use the mycelium. But for other mushrooms, the problem with that is a lot of the mushroom companies, including like Paul Stamets, big ass fungi perfecti company, is they even say this on the bottle is they're using the myceliated mushroom cakes, which has a lot of filler. That brown rice I was talking about, which these grains have the same like beta glucans, but they're bonded together differently, and they're not as bioavailable or have the medicinal properties as just a mushroom fruiting body, polysaccharides and stuff like that. So that's the big issue right now is a lot of companies are just grinding up their mushroom cakes that have grains in it, filler, and then saying that it has all these medicinal properties, but it might not be as high as if you were to use. So we're with here at Los Hongos, we're going to be using all extracts. So I have 8 different mushroom extracts. And the reason why I'm choosing extracts is because I can make sure that I'm putting, let's say, 1 milliliter is like the daily dose recommended. I can make sure that I'm putting that 1 milliliter into whatever drink people order, whatever coffee that they order, and I can ensure that they're getting their daily dose of these mushrooms. With the powders, and you have to make sure that you're getting that daily dose, or that that capsule you're buying is just lion's mane fruiting body, or is it a mixture with the grains, with the filler, with the substrate. So that's a big misconception that's going on in the mushroom world right now. So I personally recommend extracts. That's why tinctures are a really good way to go. That's why I have 8 different extract tinctures, and we'll be able to mask. If your mushroom tincture doesn't taste like mushrooms, then you're most likely not getting your daily dose, and it might just be diluted down with ethanol or water. So I don't know. It does taste nasty. That's why we are gonna put that into a nice cacao drink where it masks the chocolate cacao will mask the nasty kind of mushroom tasting tincture. So I recommend tinctures to get your daily dose in.
Excellent. So we kind of want to move on to foraging. We kind of talked a little bit about some of the availability in our region. But if you are kind of out in your natural environment and you're going to forage plants and fungi, what are kind of some ethical and safety guidelines, field books, or things that you can use to make sure you're not disrupting nature and kind of taking what you need?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Mushrooms and plants can be deadly, and they are deadly. So definitely making sure that you're vetting the mushrooms that you're finding with reliable sources. There's a couple different people that I've met up here in Portland who lead forays. So they actually lead you into the forest and help you identify these mushrooms, help you feel more confident for when you're alone. Then you could be like, oh yeah, Tony said that I can make whatever with this one, or this one has this medicinal properties. So just making sure that you're vetting your mushrooms. Same with the psilocybin ones. There's a lot of mushrooms called gallerinas that look like psilocybin
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms, but they'll make you sick as hell. Some are actually pretty deadly as well. So making sure that you go with somebody who knows what they're doing. There's a huge, what's it called? iNaturalist. So
Yes, I was just going to talk to you about that. How reliable do you feel iNaturalist is as far as
it's very reliable.
identification?
So
Yeah.
there's professionals. One of them is there's professionals on there that literally enjoy within minutes to hours. They'll get to your post and identify it, tell you if it's edible, tell you the medicinal properties in a sense. So they really just like I said, there's people out there that really get a kick out of this, and they're just on it. So I
I'll
think it's
tell you the thing I think is cool is I can learn about a plant or a fungi in online or in a book. I can go to iNaturalist, type in what I'm looking for. It'll pull up a map, a geographical map of my region, and there'll be little dots where people have found it. And so you can go to those spots to, get your medicine mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Exactly. And like I said, there's this one guy, Alan Rockefeller. He's a friend of mine. He spoke at like a couple of my events in Arcata, and we've gone foraging together before. And he's awesome to see him work because he just knows all the science, all the fucking terms. He'll be like, oh, that's a this, and he has so many identifications all over the world on iNaturalist, and I think he's like sponsored by them, so that's probably why he's like always on there too as well. But he's one of those individuals that's really good to have like on your team where you could be like, hey, what's this? And specify the question straight to Alan Rockefeller. But iNaturalist is a great way to kind of like stay in that, to see where those mushrooms are being found. And you are also helping with the database when you log
Yeah.
it in. Sometimes it'd be like, we've never found that mushroom there.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I do want to kind of circle back to the little brown mushrooms. Those ones have very, very dangerous lookalikes. A lot of times when you're foraging something like a lobster mushroom, it's a very pretty distinct thing. There's not going to be anything out there that looks like it. So as a beginner, if you could kind of hone in on the ones that are super unique in their morphology, and maybe look at ones that don't have deadly lookalikes. The lookalike might make you shit your pants for 2 days, but it's not going to kill you. You know what I mean? So if you could kind of focus in on those to get out there and get your feet wet, and then you'll start seeing other stuff that you can start referencing iNaturalist and some of the other resources available. I'm also curious about how long it's going to take for AI to really integrate mushroom identification, chemistry, and all of that stuff. I think that's going to be exciting as well.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's going to be a crazy technological advance in the mushroom world. I know what they just did was I think they found big ass mycelial network and they shot it with dye, and they were able to see how fucking vast of an area that this one myceliated network reached, and it was like something crazy, like huge. I'm pretty sure that was done here in Oregon.
Yeah, it's in Oregon. It was the largest living organism, but they found some other place that has something similar that's actually larger. It's like a tree network.
Yeah.
A one living tree network that was larger. But for the longest time, we had that out there in Eastern Oregon. It was a mycelial network that was just absolutely massive. Absolutely massive.
Well, we have time for about one or two more questions, so I'll try to hit one with that's kind of I don't know, kind of fun. So, do you have any top 3 plants and fungi that you like to forage?
Yeah, I really enjoy. One thing that we love to do in Humboldt was the psilocybin cyanescens. They're a pretty potent psychedelic mushroom, and what's crazy and what I'm finding is these natural growing mushrooms have different precursors and different um, like compounds. Like, you know how cannabis has, we focus on THC.
Yeah.
It's the same with mushrooms, and these natural ones have different precursors called baeocystin or neurobaeocystin. And to me, it makes the whole high or experience a lot different than like cultivated ones. So that's really why I like the cyanescens and the azarescens are like my favorite, because they just feel so much different because of these different concentrations of norbaeocystin, baeocystin, in those precursors to psilocybin and psilocin.
Well, something I always kind of preach, I guess you'll say on the show, is that the chemistry of these individual cultivars and these individual species are chemical keys. And you have the lock mentally, physically, and spiritually. And how those keys enter your lock and what they do for you can be completely different from one cultivar to the next. And one, like you said, chemistry presented in fungi from one species to the next.
Yep.
I mean, everyone knows the difference between eating Amanita and the difference between eating like a livery cat.
Yeah.
Your experience is going to be tremendously different. So one of the last questions we have is resources and foraging in urban spaces, because I think a lot of people don't realize their foraging potential just within their own urban space. So can you kind of talk about some of the resources or ways that people can utilize their urban space for foraging?
Yeah, I would recommend finding in your community people who are already involved. So that's like the best way to kind of like build a community or some resources that can either take you out foraging or tell you where to go. Like some people are really nice and they'll send you coordinates and say, yo, lobster mushrooms are popping off right here. And then you just go and find them for yourself. And maybe if you've never seen it, look at a photo. And then you have these resources where you could send the photo to them and be like, hey, is this what I'm looking for? And a lot of the mushroom world is very like open, and we like to share knowledge. That was very different with cannabis. When I was in Kansas, it'd be like, nope, we're hiding our fucking we're hiding our texts and shit like that. But so I was
gonna ask you about that, because our portion of the cannabis community, this podcast, and the people that we have on our show are open source people. We are not gatekeepers. In the mushroom world, when you find a patch that reoccurs every year, you kind of don't want everyone to come there and take your patch, you know? So, kind of talk about some of the gatekeeping versus the open sourceness of the mushroom community.
Yeah, I mean, it does really suck when you go and see the habitat and environment surrounding, let's say, a ovoid patch. That's another psychedelic mushroom that grows a lot here in Oregon. And it sucks to see how the destruction of it, just from footsteps or maybe people leaving trash. The ice plant that people will rip up. Ice plant is usually it's an invasive species, so it's good that people are ripping it up. But it does suck that it's happened to me where you go to a spot that used to reoccur, grow these psychedelic mushrooms every year, and then one of the years it just stops because everyone just beat the hell out of it.
Yeah.
So that does suck. So I can see why that's probably the most gatekeeping that I've seen is people just hiding their spots. And I get it. You're like,
Yeah.
you want to keep it. So sometimes you'll go and find a spot and they'll have premature babies that don't need to be picked. They're not fully ripe. And you're like, ooh, I'm going to wait like a week and come back. And then you come back and you see that someone picked your babies that you saw and they're not yours. But like, you're like, oh man, like I wanted to see what those look like fully mature.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that in the Northwest here, especially in our region, there's enough bounty for everyone.
Yeah.
There is definitely enough abundance. One spot I like to go to, I'll go ahead and ungatekeep this spot, is Tillamook Head in Seaside, Oregon. The head of the trail goes from Seaside to Cannon Beach, and it's pure coastal forest all the way there. Huge diversity. I went out, I got porcini, I got lobster, I got chanterelle. They're all popping there. Down on the Deerheart golf course, there's a lot of pine that surround that golf course. You get a lot of amanita that come up in there. And then we have Fort Stevens National Park on the Oregon side and the Hammond-Warrington area and the Jetty. And that's where you're going to find your azarescents and a multitude of mushrooms in those areas. And so, like I said, I honestly feel like there's abundance. I think that's one of the things that humans get tricked into is the illusion of scarcity. We live in a massively abundant planet. And so I think gatekeeping is not servicing humanity, in my opinion.
So, David, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We appreciate your time. Where can people, let's make sure that we let everyone know where they can follow you online. If you have a website, anything else, just feel free to plug whatever.
Yeah, so we're going to be having our grand opening, is what we were calling it, but I think it's going to be more of a soft opening on November 15th. We will be having a couple live bands, local Portland bands. I plan to have the music playing. We'll probably do some like mushroom trivia, and just we'll be showcasing some of the foods and drinks that we'll be servicing on the daily here. So, I mean, definitely follow my social medias, but if you're in the Portland area or in Oregon, come visit. Please reach out if you have or want to host an event here, if you guys want to do a talk or a business meeting. Any of that kind of stuff is more than welcome. So definitely just come down to Los Hongos and we'll pour you up a nice little drink.
Yeah, I'm going to be there for the soft opening, and as the next grow season happens, I hope to be doing some events there as well. I'm really excited about the space. So if I am looking at doing a small event there, what is the capacity of the event space?
I think we could comfortably host at least around probably 80 people max. I'm assuming this soft opening is probably going to be pretty fucking packed. So I think that'll be a good gauge on like what we can really do. What's good is we have a little patio area that we'll set up with chairs and stuff as well, and we have a nice, pretty big kind of sidewalk outside on Division Street. So I'm really excited to see what it takes to fill this place up.
That's awesome. Sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, man. Well, we wish you the best. And thank you so much for spending the time with us today and sharing your knowledge. It was really interesting. to dive through and super just knowledgeable. So thank you for your time. Thanks, JR, for putting together today's episode. We appreciate it. Thanks to our sponsors. The links for them are in the show description, as well as a link to join CannaBuzz. We'd love to see you over there. And as always, JR,
Growers love.
peace, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.